Aita for not wanting my dad and his wife at family functions anymore. OP47F and my dad is 79. Let's start off with I love my father. Even after all of this, I love him, but don't want to speak to him. I do have daddy issues from things I've been through in my life with him and his mentality, but I do love him very much and invite him to everything we do and even just dinner out for no reason. His wife, on the other hand, is a challenge. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 11 and they both moved on. So this isn't I hate the new wife because of a divorce. Years later, 20, my mom was murdered and my dad's second wife died from complications from dementia. While his second wife was sick, his now third wife came around a lot to help him out with her. My dad went to church with this lady and has since I was born. At family functions with the new third wife, we noticed she was a little different. My first time at their house, I realized very quickly that she is a hoarder. So at kids' birthday parties, she would take the extra plastic silverware and plates and napkins and stick them in her purse. At every function, after my dad and her would leave, we would discuss it among ourselves that I wonder if she has a mental issue. The last party, there were no plastic silverware left, and she dug them out of the trash. My daughter got engaged last year, and when we started planning the very elaborate wedding, I spoke to my dad several times in a very nice way to talk to Sally and let her know that she isn't to take any of the silverware or table decorations. At one point, we had a sample table set up, and my dad saw it. I said, Daddy, make sure you talk to Sally and make sure she understands she can't take any items from the wedding except the guest thank you gift. My dad made a joke about how much Sally would love the table decorations and blew me off. For months before the wedding, I was stressed that Sally would take items at the wedding, and I again reiterated to my dad to talk to her or leave her at home. Rehearsal dinner night. Rehearsal dinner was at the venue, and everything was set up for the wedding the next day. I was eating and looked up to see Sally grab a huge stack of napkins and putting them in her purse. Napkins that were for both day and were special ordered for the wedding, not just plain store-bought napkins. I was so upset that I just got up and walked outside so I wouldn't cause a scene. For the wedding, they weren't having alcohol, so they set up a hot cocoa and coffee bar, which was for the wedding, but already set up the night before. While I was outside trying to calm down, one of our family members came out and told me Sally was taking items from the hot cocoa bar, cups, coffee stirrers, and the cocoa sticks dyed in peppermint. My oldest daughter walked over and politely, I have witnesses, told her those items were for the wedding. Sally threw the items down on the counter, threw her hands up and huffed, and walked back to her table. When I came back in to address the issue with my dad, he was on his way out. He has had enough of my kids, 24 and 22, behavior and how his wife was just treated. I very quietly told my dad that we had discussed this and that she wasn't to leave with anything. His response to me was that my daughter, not the one getting married, had no business speaking to his wife the way she did, and that if we didn't want items taken, we should have had a sign stating that. I told my dad I wasn't wrong, they were, and they continued to leave as I went to fix the drink station. 5 to 10 minutes went by, and I noticed my daughter, the bride, was missing along with my husband and the other daughter. The bride followed my dad out and said he shouldn't leave in that manner, and that's when things went south. My dad grabbed the bride by her arm, stuck his finger in her face, and said, "You are nothing but a spoiled, rotten brat, and you are ruined with no fixing you." Bride grabbed his finger out of her face and told him the only reason he's still standing was out of respect. An out-of-town family member that didn't know it was the bride's grandfather stepped in between them. My dad turned around to walk off and said he wouldn't be there tomorrow for the wedding. My husband found out what was going on and told him we will address the issue of you putting hands on my daughter later. But if you don't show for the wedding, your shaky relationship with your daughter will be done. Next day was great. My dad showed up and was even seated at our table with his wife. He was included in all photos with the bride and groom and family photos. My dad didn't speak to me the entire day. I found out later that he had someone introduce him to the family member that stepped in the night before and apologized to her, and an uncle that didn't have a clue anything had happened. Never apologized to me, my husband, the bride, or my other daughter. Has even called since then and asked for a favor. I was busy and couldn't help. Sally texted and asked how the honeymoon was going, and I didn't respond. My brother says I'm overreacting. He's old, and to just let it go. I don't think I can, as this is part of a very long list of male chauvinist acts and comments he has made. Just one example, Thanksgiving 2 years ago, my dad told my daughter, Bride, that the way you dress gives men the wrong idea, and if something were to happen to you, it would be your fault rape. She had on a dress for the first time in years, except church, and it was to her knees. She did tell him how he was wrong, and his wife Sally defended my dad's statement. I could go on for days, but I won't. AIDA, if I don't invite him to anything else? Update to address some issues. I have had a rocky relationship with my dad since my parents' divorce, and I have daddy issues because of it. I don't have any delusion about who my dad is or what kind of man he is. I have two older brothers, and my dad never knew what to do with a girl. So on my weekends with him, he either left me sitting on the porch and never showed. He insisted he did not want to see my mom, or he would actually show up, and he would take me to work with him on his side job of handyman work. I'm grateful for because I am independent and can fix just about anything. Aside from that, without going into crazy detail, I have gone 100% in C with his entire side of the family, except an uncle that has nothing to do with any of the issues that have come up in the past. I have also gone LC or in C several times since I was 18 and legally allowed to. My husband and I have raised very smart, level-headed, most of the time, strong women. Since my mom was murdered, they desperately wanted to be close to my dad, and he never wanted slash allowed it. I don't know why, except he's a very selfish human being. They learned very young what a nasty, ugly world this is, and I allowed them to an extent to decide who they would allow to be in their bubble. Having a parent, my best friend and favorite person on earth, murdered is something that puts things in a completely different perspective. In the past 16 years, my kids have lived that, felt it, and suffered through it. I don't sugarcoat life, because they know the truth. My daughters, Bride 22, Sister 24, have never been forced to have contact with a family member they didn't want to have contact with. My youngest daughter that my dad made the comment to stood up to him and let him have it before I could come flying from the kitchen and told him to get the F asterisk 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 out of my house. What is so completely hilarious about the whole thing is she is the most modest person you ever met. Never wears revealing clothes or short shorts, and anything to give him a reason to make the comment as wrong as it was. Her bathing suits have long sleeves because she is fair-skinned. After he left and I quit plotting bad things on him, we just laughed. We laughed because he is so selfish and many, many other things that it was funny that of all people he said that to her. That was Thanksgiving a couple years ago. Before Christmas, he stopped by my house to talk. I had not spoken to him since kicking him out of the house at Thanksgiving. He stopped by to see what my adult children that were in college wanted for Christmas, and my response was all any of us want from you for Christmas is to show up and shut your effing mouth or don't come. Period. Everyone in our family has enough money to buy what they want, and it's truly about family time and not gifts for Christmas. Since then, he has done good at not making any out-of-the-way comments that I have heard. I do all the cooking for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, and we get together at my house, so I will stay in the kitchen and talk to my other guests and family, and mostly ignore my dad and completely do ignore Sally, just to keep my sanity. I do always give him a hug and tell him I love him and just abide as Sally. Both of my daughters have the right to include or exclude anyone they want from their weddings, and I did not force anything on her as far as my dad being there. The bride is a strong adult woman, and her now husband is supportive of her and her choices. She chose to have my dad in her wedding photos because she knows that those will be her memories when he is gone, and she chooses to remember him from the good memories. I am so very, very aware that my only true, loving parent was taken from me. I am aware that my kids and my nieces and nephews lost the best grandparent they had. I have often wondered and prayed for an answer of why it was her and not him, which I feel bad about. I know for a fact that my kids feel the same way. Why was it her and not him? I raised my kids to love, give trust when earned, be strong, and stand up for yourself. And they do. To address why I didn't do anything about my father when he grabbed my daughter. I was in another area of the rehearsal dinner fixing what Sally had messed up and had no idea what was happening outside. No one came and got me or told me what happened till it was over and he was gone. I do remember my two daughters and husband walking in the doors together, and they were laughing and smiling. And I thought, they must have not seen or heard my conversation with my dad and Sally. Nope, they did, and they were laughing and smiling because they weren't letting that H ruin her special day. I found out everything that had happened when I got home that night. We had 12 family members staying with us, and one of them happened to be the one that stepped in during the altercation. That's when everyone decided it was safe to tell me what had happened. Yes, I said safe, and I mean safe for my dad. The bride decided it was still okay for him to come if he shows up, and out of respect for her and her hubby, I didn't say anything or cause a scene. Her wedding day was not the time or the place for me to unleash 47 years of foos on him. My oldest daughter will be getting married in the next year or so, and she has already said he isn't invited, and that is fine. Also, guys, it's only been 18 days, which maybe I should have said sooner, since this happened, and I haven't calmed down enough to address anything with him. The bride and groom are still on their honeymoon and haven't addressed it with him either. My husband isn't calmed down enough yet to speak to my father, and we also have out-of-town guests still staying with us. I vented to my brother, who also agrees we lost the best parent and best grandparent our kids had. He was only saying that dad will never change, and even though his wife is embarrassing, men are supposed to defend their wives. He agrees what my dad did by grabbing my daughter was wrong, but also pointed out that my dad hates to be wrong or stood up to, and she stood up to him being an AH. I hope this answers some of the questions that people commented.